Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most interesting movies that I have ever seen in my life. The movie The Life of Chuck, directed by Mike Flanagan, starring Tom Hiddleston. I had no idea what to expect for this movie going into it, and I gotta say, this has got to be one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in my life. Let's talk about it, shall we?
Modern Movie Review.
Okay, so I'm going to be very, very adamant here that if you have not seen this movie, I really would recommend going and watching it without seeing this video, because this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And I think because of the way that they structure this film, it starts off with the final act and then works its way forward to the beginning of the life of Chuck. And I really liked that. I think that was a really cool structure. But because of the way that this film is set up, I really can't tell you that much about what's going on in this film without it being a massive spoiler that would potentially ruin the film for you. I think that this is one of those movies where like a shock factor is definitely a very big, important factor for you to get when you're watching these movies. So I definitely would recommend going, watching the movie, and then coming back and watching this video. That being said, let's dive fully into this review. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so now because this movie is structured very interestingly, I'm going to actually structure this review very interestingly as well. We're going to go from act to act to act and kind of explain everything that I really liked about it and my biggest takeaways from all of it. So starting off, this movie starts off with the end of Charles Krantz's life. And the way that they do this is very unique. And I really like it because since they're able to build upon things as the story goes, they actually leave the first act as vague as possible. And you don't really understand what is going on with the world right now. So for people who have ever like had a conceited friend in their life, if they've ever had somebody who they know who like it seems like in their mind the world revolves around them, they almost kind of make this movie in but like for the life of Chuck. So because Chuck is dying and he's dying of a brain tumor and his world is kind of collapsing in front of him, the world is collapsing in front of them. And we're seeing it from the perspective of people who do not know Charles Krantz. Nobody has any idea who he is. And I think that this is really interesting. So we start off with Chihidi Owiji's character. I probably butchered his name. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I tried pronouncing that as best as I could. And I went into it with full confidence and then I said it. So I don't have as much confidence anymore. But he is a teacher, and currently nobody is focusing in his class. There's somebody who's trying to read out a Walt Whitman, I'm assuming a book, maybe a poem, I'm not entirely sure, but they talk about having layers and how as a person you have multitudes, right? And I think that that is a very interesting thing. I really like the fact that this is something that the film decides to focus on a lot, and you'll come to learn why. Alrighty, sorry for that awkward cut. I got a phone call. It's almost midnight the time that I'm recording this. Isn't that great? Anyways, not the point. So something that I think is really interesting is they kind of carry that through line throughout this entire film. Being a person, you have so much going on, you contain multitudes, and then they describe it very interestingly towards the end of the movie, where they have a character explaining it to Chuck as a child, and they're like, what all is in your brain? And you're talking about like, oh, well, I know this person, I know that person, I know this thing, I know that. And then they kind of go on to explain how like everybody you have ever met has their own story and has this own different thing that's going on, but you know them, so everything that is going on in the world around you is actually going on in your brain, which, Jesus Christ, this movie is the most thought-provoking movie I've ever seen, because like I genuinely need to watch this movie multiple times to fully understand and process what that means. But for the most part, it sets up this third act in a really interesting light, where we're experiencing the world as Charles Krantz's mind would be experiencing the world, because like he's seen these people, he doesn't know their full story, so he's kind of like giving stories to the people in his life, and everything that we're seeing in this third act is stuff that will become more familiar throughout the movie, because it'll be people and places and things that Charles Krantz has experienced at some point in his life, and I think that that is really interesting. So the world is falling apart. There is some of the worst natural disasters of all time. There's all kinds of different issues going on with the world is just absolutely ending, right? And so we're focusing on Chihidi Owiji's character, and he's a teacher, and he's kind of really depressed. He went through a divorce, and he's getting back with his ex, because if the world is ending, you want to go find somebody you're comfortable with. You want to go and try to make things work and just spend the rest of your life loving another human being. And because of that, this movie becomes very interesting. There's sinkholes, earthquakes, all kinds of different issues with the world around them. And the only thing that seems to be not going wrong is billboards along the city that say, thank you, Chuck, for 39 great years. And nobody has any idea who Chuck is. Nobody has any idea what these billboards are coming from, why they are randomly popping up everywhere, and what exactly those 39 years that they're talking about is. And that just becomes like this really interesting thing that as he's going about his day and he's trying to just continue on with life like it's normal, That's just something that keeps popping up. And there's another thing where, like, eventually it starts off with the Wi-Fi going out, and then there's no internet, so all of the people at the schools are freaking out. And then you start having, you know, like sinkholes, wildfires, all those different things, and there's a lot of issues with that. And then the TV's broadcasts stop working, so he can't watch TV anymore. And then eventually he decides, you know what, I'm gonna go run to my ex's house because I want to see her just in case this actually is the end of the world. And he walks from, you know, his house all the way to her house, and he interacts with other humans. I don't know why I said humans instead of just other people, other characters along the way, and has just like conversations about the meaning of the life. And if this is the end of the world, well, did we enjoy life? Did we make the most out of life? Is, you know, did you do enough in this time? And I think that it is incredibly just heartwarming and very unique. And in this, we get to see Carl Lumley, who gives some beautiful monologues about the meaning of life and how, like, you only have so much time to live out your dreams and do everything that you want to accomplish in this life, and every moment you should cherish. And it really is like a celebration of life kind of movie, this film is, and it is absolutely beautiful. They walk together, they kind of just, you know, are human beings. And something that I do really like about this movie is during this final act, when the world is kind of falling apart, everybody just like says, we don't need these cell phones, we don't need the internet, we don't need this, we don't need that, we need to just go out and interact with other human beings. And it's so beautiful. That genuinely is a really beautiful thing. But finally, the main character who we've been following this whole time is able to make it to his ex's house, and when he enters the neighborhood, the power completely goes out, all of the street lights are out, and the only thing that you do see is Charles Krantz's face in all of the windows in every single building ever. And holy shit, that was the most terrifying thing ever. It is so trippy, and because this is the first thing you're watching and you haven't seen the rest of the movie and you don't know who Charles Krantz is or the Chuck character, this actually is genuinely terrifying. Like, this one was very scary. There are multiple points throughout this movie that I said scared the shit out of me. This was one of them. It was just absolutely terrifying. And then finally, this kind of sets into motion the rest of this act, where he quickly runs to his ex's house. They sit together, watch the stars until all of the stars start exploding and they die together. And it's a very beautiful moment. And then we get to something cheerier now. Act 2. This might be my favorite act in the movie. Let's talk about it. Okay, so for Act 2, I want to go ahead and say I feel like this one is one of the best ones where it comes to actually just showcasing like the beauty of humanity. I think that they do a really good job just showing people interacting with other human beings and just kind of like living their best lives and doing whatever they want and not being afraid of judgment. And I think that that's an absolutely beautiful thing. I love it. And one of my favorite things about this act in particular is this whole movie is narrated by Nick Offerman, but in this particular act, he is just absolutely fucking hilarious. He is so good. And I wasn't aware, but going into this movie, that it was a rated R movie. So when the narrator starts dropping F-bombs, that was so fucking funny to me. It absolutely made me laugh my ass off. That was absolutely hilarious. And so we're seeing this girl who is a busker. She does drums. She just goes to random different plazas and, you know, we'll just kind of like play the drums for a couple of hours, try to get some tips in a hat in front of her. And this particular day, she's playing the drums as typical, and then she comes across Chuck, who is played by Tom Hiddleston, and oh my god, he is absolutely incredible. But the busker tries to kind of like read people's vibes. So when they're playing the drums, right, they'll just play like a steady beat until they're like, you know what, this person feels like they could tell a story. And so she is looking at the Chuck character, and he's wearing like just like a regular like businessy suit kind of outfit. And she's like, well, he seems like he would have a regular life. So she plays, once again, a relatively simple beat, but something about the way that she is playing this beat is just absolutely speaking to Tom Hiddleston's character, and we'll figure out why during the first act, and it is actually like a really beautiful and emotional thing. And he just starts dancing, having a really damn good time, and then the drummer picks up on the fact that he's dancing and he's getting into it, so she starts playing different kind of beats as he dances a little bit more, and it just continues to build and build and build and build. And I absolutely love it, because personally I have a lot of issues sometimes with feeling any emotions at all, right? Sometimes I get emotionally numb. Sometimes I feel like I might have depression. I don't absolutely know. I haven't been diagnosed with anything, but it's one of those things where it's just like, if I ever want to truly feel like I am living life and I'm experiencing things to the fullest, I go to somewhere where I can see live music, and this movie just absolutely brought that same magic to me that I get when I'm experiencing live music, because the drummer in the moment is playing different kinds of beats and just getting more and more and more into it, and Chuck, Tom Hiddleston's character, is getting more and more and more into it, and then slowly a crowd kind of gathers around them because they're like, oh my god, this person's dancing and it's really, really good, and this person's playing the drums and it's really, really good, and they're all just having a really good time. And then another person, a girl who is going through a really rough breakup and is just kind of having like a really shitty day, gets kind of interrupted and caught up in the crowd, and she's really feeling the music too, and Chuck picks up on it and is just like, dance with me, sister, and he puts his hand out in a very specific way, and he kind of leads her. They dance together, they have a really good time, and then you get this just absolutely beautiful, like 10-minute long dancing sequence between Tom Hiddleston, I don't know the actress of the ginger girl, I will figure it out and put it up on the screen, and then the drummer just absolutely matching their energy and kind of like making things up as they go. And this scene is so well recorded and produced, and the energy is so good in it that I genuinely was dancing in my seat. Like, this is such a great sequence, and I just absolutely love it because it's like the spontaneousness of it is absolutely beautiful. Nick Offerman's like narrations of all of this is absolutely hilarious and really, really great, and just overall it feels just so beautiful. And at the end of this act, whenever they like finish this little dance number that they have and they kind of go their separate ways, they freeze frame on Chuck while he's like really long in thought, trying to figure out like, why did he start dancing? What made him want to stop in the middle of the street and start dancing? And Nick Offerman continues to narrate, and he talks about how like he doesn't know that in a couple months from now he's not going to be able to walk anymore, and he's not going to be able to do this, and he's not going to be able to sing, and he's not going to be able to like chew his own food and all of this different depressing stuff because like he dies of cancer. And he just talked about how like this is one of the last days he was ever able to dance in his life, and dance has always been such a beautiful, meaningful thing in his life. And even though he hadn't done it in about 20 years since he was a teenager, he felt just the urge to dance because it was his last chance that he was ever going to get to. And when I tell you, that narration made me sob. Oh, I was in so much tears. Oh, it was rough. And just overall, that's like the main theme of this movie. This is like the biggest takeaway of this film, is never take things for granted, because like that's like some of the little stuff. And for Chuck, he's somebody who's been dancing his whole life. That's been like a really big part of his entire life. And this was the last time he ever danced, and he didn't know it. And it was the last time he was actually even physically able to dance, and he didn't even know it. But there was like something in him just told him he had to dance now, like it was his last chance to do so. And that's just beautiful. That's just incredible storytelling. And as somebody who like some of my favorite things I've ever done in my life, you'll experience some lasts, and you won't even know that it's your last time doing those things until like years go by and you're like, man, that was the last time I ever did that. And I had no idea in the moment. And it's just like this insane bittersweet feeling of you were so glad that you got to experience that, but you're so heartbroken because it's over. And that absolutely punched me in the gut. It was so good. And I absolutely love the way that they were able to frame this entire second act. But that being said, to get to action number one, which is also pretty damn good. So now to talk about the first act, I absolutely love this one as well. I will gotta go ahead and say this. I am a huge fan of coming of age movies. When I was 16 years old, that's when COVID struck and everything kind of shut down the entire world. So it now holds a special place in my heart when I get to watch somebody grow up, because I feel like I kind of got deprived of some of those memories. So for this film, we're now going to cut back to the beginning of Chuck's life, which is very bleak, very depressing. He's about 8 years old and his parents pass away, and he ends up having to start living with his grandparents. And for the most part, it's a very depressing household because obviously they lost their child, and they were going to have a granddaughter as well as Chuck. Chuck's mom was expecting when they got into the car accident that ended up killing both of them. And it's incredibly bleak and incredibly sad. And a couple years go by, and finally things are kind of starting to like get exciting again. The grandma is starting to dance in the kitchen whenever she's making her food, and she's teaching Chuck how to dance, and they're having like fun little memories and being a great little happy family, and it's so cute. And I love the way that they kind of montage through this very, very depressing time to finally being able to get everything back to some sense of happiness and having a good family life for Chuck. And I really like that. I thought that that was really cool. And then for the most part, we kind of just focus on the fact that Chuck learns that he really likes dancing and he thinks that it's a really good time, and he dances with his aunt a lot. And I keep saying aunt. I'm in my mind, I'm thinking about like Spider-Man, and I'm thinking about like Aunt May, because the actress who plays his grandma doesn't look like a grandma age. And part of it is because like it's early on in Chuck's life. So Chuck is like 10 years old. So like, yeah, his grandma is not going to be super old. But yeah, I thought that that was really interesting. And so I really liked that. But we kind of get to just explore Chuck's childhood, and he has a sense of like childhood wonder that is really interesting. He likes dancing with his grandma. His grandfather is very alcoholic, because obviously his son passed away, and he's very, very not handling it well. He doesn't cope with things relatively well, and he kind of has so much like trauma and different issues that you kind of get the sense of to why a little later on in the movie. But up in the, I don't remember what the room is called, but there's kind of like a roof room up in their house, and it has a lock on it. It's a very big mystery that they kind of like tease at the beginning of the movie. And Chuck, as a little child, is like, oh my god, there's a roof up there. I kind of really want to go see what it is. And the lock is just making him want to explore it more. So they kind of build this first act with a little bit of a mystery sense as to like what is in this room, what could possibly be in this room. And we're seeing Chuck go from being like a socially awkward little kid to he enters 6th grade. He joins this dance club called like Spins and Slips or something like that. That's probably wrong. That's definitely, oh, Twirlers and Spinners. I think that that's it. But he joins this little dance club. He's one of the best dancers there. He's constantly, you know, helping some of the other people excel and learn how to dance a little bit better. He has this girl that's in 8th grade that he kind of has a crush on, that he likes to dance with. And she invites him to go to this ball that's kind of like their version of a prom, so that they can dance together and kind of show people how it's done. And it's a very cute thing, and I really like that. And Chuck kind of goes through a couple more tragedies. His grandmother passes away, but this dance club is definitely helping him get through it. He's super close with his grandfather, and his grandfather one night left the keys somewhere where Chuck could get them, because he wants to go into the secret room in the roof. And he goes up to that room and he unlocks the door. He takes a step inside. He doesn't see anything, but very quickly the grandfather, who is played by Mark Hamill, who is absolutely incredible in this movie, by the way, the entire supporting cast, absolutely incredible. I haven't talked about him much, but like Matthew Lillard is in this movie for maybe about like 2.5 minutes, and he is phenomenal in it. David Dastmalchian, once again, very, very short, brief interaction at the very beginning of the movie, but he's fantastic. And then Mark Hamill in this scene, he quickly runs up the stairs. And this is another scene that reminds you that Mike Flanagan is a horror director. He quickly runs up the stairs, grabs the little kid, Chuck, and just kind of like chucks him out of the way, because he's like, no, you can't be in this room. And then he stares into the room, and he is absolutely shocked to his core, trembling, just absolutely terrified. And he quickly closes the door, locks it, and then quickly realizes, oh my god, what he just did. And he goes and comforts his son. And there's still this huge just kind of like mystery as like, oh my god, what is going on at, you know, in this roof. And so eventually we kind of go past this interaction or whatever, because it was very traumatizing, and we kind of want to like flash forward to later in Chuck's life when he's probably about like 16 or 17, and now he's played by Jacob Tremblay. And unfortunately, Mark Hamill's character passes away and dies of a heart attack, and it is very emotional and very sad. We go through the funeral. Chuck is trying his best to kind of try to stay optimistic, and now that he's older, he has kind of a lot that he is trying to kind of like handle things as professionally as possible, and he's trying to be very adult, and I think that that's great. And he finds out that when his grandfather passed away, he set up so much different random things for different life insurance and this and that, and tried to make sure that he was setting up his son for the most success as possible. And the guy who works at the funeral home who's talking to Chuck about this makes it seem like he almost knew he was going to die, and it's a very really interesting thing. And then eventually he gives Chuck everything that was in, you know, his grandfather's possession when he passed away, and one of them is the keys to the roof. And Chuck goes up there, he opens up that roof and steps inside, and what he sees is himself dead, dying on a hospital bed of cancer. And he realizes that the entire time, everything that the grandfather was able to see whenever he would go into that room is how people are going to die. And in the movie, the grandfather has kind of like said that he's seen other people dying before they were actually going to die. And it gets discovered that the reason he freaked out on Chuck that one night was because he saw the way that he was going to die, and it absolutely traumatized him. And now Chuck is seeing how he's going to die, and they say something that is kind of repeated throughout this entire movie, which is, it's the waiting that kills you, because he can't tell how old he is in that, you know, glimpse of his future that he's seeing here. And it's just a very depressing thing knowing that one day he's going to die, and he really has to make sure that he's living his life to the fullest, because everybody knows that they're going to die one day, and it sucks, and everything is going down the drain, and all we can say is it sucks. Maybe we're going down the drain with it. And oh my god, this movie was captivating, touching. I probably didn't do it justice in this review. I really tried to just kind of like set the scene and kind of explain things to you for anybody who maybe saw it and didn't really fully understand it or get like the whole vibes of the movie. But overall, I really loved it. It made me cry. It jump scared me a couple of times. It made me laugh my ass off a few times, and I was quite literally smiling from ear to ear or cheek to cheek. What's the saying? I think it's ear to ear during this sequence in Act 2 where they were all dancing. So that was just beautiful, and I really loved it. But yeah, overall, I really like this movie. I think it's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. I'm going to rewatch it whenever I get the chance now that I've seen the act structure and I kind of have the whole story. I think rewatching Act 3, the first 20 minutes, is going to be a lot more interesting. But yeah, overall, if I had to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm going to give this a solid 93. This genuinely is one of my favorite movies I've seen this year, and I definitely would recommend it to literally anybody and everybody. But yeah, that being said, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. And if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.